Hello, 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 everybody. This is Ebony Vaughn, and I am coming to you today. And I just wanted to stop by to give some really sound and wise tips to those of you who might be struggling with grief and loss. One of the reasons why I decided to do this live is because over the past 2 weeks, I have been working with so many people who have experienced either sudden loss or just experienced the upcoming holidays and New Year's without their loved ones. And I just wanted to take some time just to share some tips that may be helpful. I am not going to be before you long, but I just want to talk about ways to help you get through this season as you go on your journey of a new life without the presence of your loved one. This is something that is very, very difficult for many of us to fathom, whether it is a loss that is sudden or whether it is a loss as it relates to a long-term illness. Loss is loss. And one thing that I never want to take for granted of, is whatever loss you experience, it cannot be minimized, nor can it be valued by anyone outside of yourself. I believe that we experience not loss not only in death, but also in transition. Also as we move from job to job, as we move from large family to empty nester, as we move from broken relationship to another. I believe that we experience loss in different ways, but today I want to spend just a few minutes talking about dealing with grief and loss as it relates to entering into a new year without the presence of your loved one. The first thing I want to say is don't isolate. Whatever you do, allow yourself the opportunity to experience the emotion, but don't isolate. Don't allow yourself to be drawn by yourself, because when you are by yourself, it breeds depression and oppression, and oftentimes you are left with just your thoughts and those memories, which can tremendously overwhelm us and really cause us to sink into a deep, deep depression. So, my recommendation is to not isolate, but to seek the help of your friends, your family, your loved ones, and also clinicians and grief counselors that are available, to help you through this process. The other thing is to allow yourself space and time to acknowledge the loss. So we're not going to suppress our feelings, but we're going to allow ourselves to acknowledge them so that we can get past them. Acknowledging them means to talk about it. It means to share how difficult it is with someone else. This is not the time for you to feel that you are bothering people or you don't want to be a burden by talking about your loss, because sometimes when you connect with other people, it allows you the opportunity to really express your feelings and purge and experience a sense of a catharsis. So, again, I want you to allow yourself the space and time to talk about it. The other thing is, I want you to refuse, to absolutely refuse, falling into addictions as an excuse to deal with or as a way out to deal with your loss. What do I mean by that? Sometimes when we experience loss, some of us, we begin to drink more. we begin to use drugs. We begin to fall into sexually deviant behaviors, and we begin to fall into negative behavior patterns as a way of expressing and demonstrating our feelings and emotions. And so, what I am simply saying is don't use negative and addictive avenues to avoid dealing with the feelings and the emotions that you might be experiencing as it relates to your grief and loss. And so, what that means is you're going to use the support of your loved ones to release and discuss those feelings of loss that you might be experiencing. You want to seek out a counselor, a therapist, to really help you through the process and through the grief cycle. You know, there is a grief cycle. And so it's so important for you to really identify that. The other thing is, I want you to avoid using rituals or involving yourself in rituals that are too painful for you to experience. And what do I mean by that? If you have just, or maybe you have recently experienced the loss, and maybe that person, you guys participated in rituals, and did things on an annual basis together. Sometimes maybe this is the time for you to avoid participating in that ritual. I have met with people who, have kind of forced themselves to continue a ritual that they experienced with the loss of their loved one too soon. And as a result, they fell into a deep state of depression. And so, what I am saying to you is don't force it. If you don't feel it, or if you feel like it's too painful to experience, avoid the rituals that will bring back overwhelming memories of that loved one. The other thing that I would recommend is to light a candle. Light a candle in remembrance and in honor of that loved one, whether if it's at the beginning of the new year, or at any time where you might be experiencing memories of that person. Light a candle, do a spoken tribute of them. Write about them in your journals, write about them if you're on social media, write about them, write, something in honor of them. For those of us who are writers, think about writing memoirs and writing in your journal as it relates to how that person impacted your life. We're talking about self-care tips. We're talking about ways that will get you through this grief and loss process. The other thing is engage in activities that bring you pleasure. Sometimes these pleasurable activities, it takes your mind off of it, and it causes you not to obsess over that lost loved one, but it really causes you to focus and experience some pleasure despite what you're going through. The other thing is to honor your feelings. Honor your feelings that you have, or your thoughts that you have of that loved one. Sometimes we wake up and we're thinking about them. We go to bed and we're thinking about that person. Honor that, and don't allow yourself to feel guilty or feel shamed because you are still thinking about that person. Sometimes I have talked with, not sometimes, more than sometimes, I have talked to people that I work with, and they're like, I should be over this. I shouldn't be thinking about this every day. And I always say to them, don't be so hard on yourself. If you are thinking about this person day and night, honor them. But you have to find things throughout your day where you can honor them, but that you can still move through your day. The key is not to become consumed with the feelings of grief and loss, because when we are consumed on a daily basis, we lose our footing and we lose our desire to go on. We lose our desire to live without that person. So if you ever feel yourself becoming consumed and experiencing obsessions as it relates to your memories of your loved one, please seek help. You have to seek help. The other thing is to operate lightly. When you are dealing with grief and loss, this is not the time for you to take on new responsibilities. This is not the time for you to add additional burdens onto your plate. This is the time for you to operate lightly. It's not that you don't do anything, but be very mindful of what you put on your plate during this time. Self-care is so important. And although we can't fix ourselves, I believe that we can execute and implement wise strategies in our lives to get us through this. It's not about becoming a new person. It's really about learning how to live your life and navigate your life without that loved one, which can be extremely difficult based upon how significant they were in your life. So this is a new and a transitioning phase for you, and one where I simply say, take care of yourself. There are many resources out there. Roberta's Place is a tremendous grief and loss, a grief and loss program that helps our communities. Your local insurance companies has many providers that are on, their role to assist you. Seek a counselor, even if you need it just for a small, just for a short time to get you past those most difficult times. But remember, be kind to yourself, be patient, and be loving. And don't assume that there is a time limit to your growth and to your healing. It is a process that can take a month or it can take a lifetime. This is Ebony Vaughn, Vaughn Therapeutic Systems. Have an amazing day and be good to you. Thank you for watching.